I jolted awake, my heart pounding against my rib cage like a caged bird desperate to escape. The remnants of the nightmare clung to me, an oppressive weight that made it hard to breathe. I could still feel the chill of the shadowy figure lurking outside my window, whispering my name in a voice that slithered through the darkness. Mia, it had breathed, a sound both inviting and sinister. I strained to catch a glimpse of its form, but as always, it melted into the shadows, leaving only a lingering sense of dread. I wiped the sweat from my brow and sat up, the early morning light filtering through the curtains, trying to wash away the horror of the night before. Just a dream, I muttered to myself, but my voice trembled, betraying my fear. I swung my legs over the side of the bed and took a deep breath, grounding myself in reality. The familiar sounds of Willow Creek, the rustling leaves, distant laughter, sounded deceptively peaceful, as if mocking my turmoil. At school later that day, I found Sarah leaning against my locker, her blonde hair glowing in the sunlight. "Hey, you look like you've seen a ghost," she teased, tilting her head. I forced a smile, but I could feel the shadows lurking just beneath the surface. "It's just these nightmares," I confessed, my voice barely above a whisper. "They're getting worse, Sarah. There's this figure. It feels so real." Her expression shifted to concern. "You should talk to your grandma about it. She's always had this thing for the supernatural, right?" I hesitated. The thought of involving my grandma both intrigued and terrified me. What if she thinks I'm losing it? Or what if she knows something that could help you? Sarah nudged me playfully. "Come on, it could be fun. Plus, you always told me those stories she shared were fascinating." That evening, my feet felt heavy as I made my way to my grandmother's house. The air was thick with anticipation, and I could almost hear the whispers of my nightmares echoing in my ears. I knocked, and her familiar figure appeared at the door, her warm smile instantly comforting. "Mia, darling, come in," she said, pulling me into her embrace. The scent of lavender and old books enveloped me, a reminder of childhood afternoons spent listening to her stories. As I sat down at the kitchen table, I felt the weight of my fears pressing down on me. "Grandma, I've been having these dreams. Nightmares, really. There's something dark in them, and I think it's trying to tell me something." Her expression shifted, shadows crossing her face. "Some dreams are warnings, Mia. You must be cautious. Our family has a history, things that are best left undisturbed." I swallowed hard, the air thick with unspoken truths. "What do you mean? What history?" She looked away, her fingers trembling around her teacup. "Not all stories are meant to be retold, my dear. But if you're feeling this pull, you must be careful. The past has a way of catching up with us." I left her house feeling unsettled, a sense of foreboding echoing in my mind. Little did I know, my nightmares were just beginning to unravel the dark tapestry of our family's past, weaving horrors that would soon blur the line between reality and the shadows lurking in my dreams. The shadows in my dreams had shifted, morphing into the distorted faces of people I recognized but couldn't quite place. Each night, they whispered my name, their voices a chilling chorus that echoed in my mind long after I woke up. I lay in my bed, the moonlight casting eerie patterns across my room, and I could almost feel their cold breath on my neck. I shook my head, trying to dispel the lingering dread. "It's just a dream," I told myself, but the weight of those faces clung to me like a heavy fog. The next morning, I stumbled through breakfast, my mother's voice a distant hum as I replayed the nightmare in my head. "Mia, you okay, honey?" she asked, concern etching her features. "Yeah, just tired," I replied, forcing a smile. Later that day, during lunch at school, Sarah leaned across the table, her eyes wide with curiosity. "You look like you've seen a ghost. What happened in your dreams?" I hesitated, unsure of how to articulate the terror that had seeped into my waking life. It was different this time. I saw faces, people from Willow Creek. They were angry? I don't know. Sarah shivered. That's creepy. Maybe you should talk to your grandma again. There's got to be something there. Her suggestion gnawed at me, both inviting and terrifying. That evening, as I climbed the creaky stairs to the attic, I felt a strange pull to uncover something hidden. Dust motes danced in the beam of my flashlight as I rummaged through old boxes. Suddenly, I stumbled upon a diary, its leather cover cracked and worn. It belonged to my late mother. My heart raced as I opened it, the pages yellowed and fragile. Words leaped off the page, detailing the tragedy that had struck our town years ago. A group of children had disappeared, their laughter silenced by an unknown fate. My breath caught in my throat as I read the names, my own family's name intertwined in the narrative. Mia, dinner's ready. My mother's voice called from downstairs, jolting me back to reality. I closed the diary, a chill creeping up my spine. The nightmares weren't just figments of my imagination. They were threads connecting me to a dark history I had yet to understand. I paced back and forth in my grandmother's dimly lit living room, the air thick with tension. The diary rested heavily in my hands, its pages filled with my mother's elegant handwriting, each word a ghostly whisper of the past. "Grandma, you have to tell me more about this," I urged, my voice breaking slightly. "The missing children. It has something to do with us, doesn't it?" Her expression shifted, a flicker of fear crossing her features. "Mia, some things are better left buried. You don't understand." She turned away, avoiding my gaze as if the very mention of the past was a curse. "You're too young to bear this knowledge." "Too young? Grandma, I'm 17. I felt a surge of frustration. This is my family too. I deserve to know the truth. "I said no," she snapped, her voice sharp and commanding. I recoiled at the sudden anger, a chill running down my spine. "You don't know what you're asking for. Those children, what happened to them is not just a story. It's a warning." I could see her hands trembling, and my heart sank. "But what if my nightmares are connected? What if I can help them?" She turned back to face me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. "Mia, some doors are best left closed. You may think you want to face your fears, but what if it only leads to more pain?" I stood there, the weight of her words pressing down on me. I can't just ignore it. I have to know. As I stormed out of the house, my mind was a whirlwind of confusion and anger. I needed answers, but it felt like the more I searched, the more shadows loomed over me. A few days later, as I sat alone on the steps of the old library, I met Jake. He approached with a hesitant smile, his dark hair tousled by the wind. "Hey, you're Mia, right?" "Yeah," I replied, surprised. "Do I know you?" "No, but I've seen you around. You look like you could use a friend." His eyes sparkled with understanding. "I've had those nightmares too. The shadows, the whispers. It's haunting, isn't it?" I felt an immediate bond, an understanding that transcended words. "You have no idea. It's like they're calling to me, and I don't know why." "Maybe we can figure it out together," Jake suggested, leaning closer. "We can face our fears. What do you say?" Something about his offer felt right, and for the first time in weeks, I felt a glimmer of hope. "Okay," I said slowly, determination welling up inside me. "Let's do it." That night, I found myself in another nightmare, a child's voice echoing through the darkness, pleading for help. "Mia, please." The voice was desperate, pulling me toward an old, abandoned house on the edge of town. I woke up with a start, my heart racing. The image of the house burned into my mind. I knew I had to go there. There was an inexplicable pull, a thread tying me to that place, and I couldn't ignore it any longer. I glanced at the clock. It was still dark outside, but I felt a sense of urgency. I need to explore that house, I whispered to myself, the resolve hardening within me. I grabbed my jacket, ready to confront whatever awaited me in the shadows. The air was thick with an unsettling silence as Jake and I stepped through the creaking door of the abandoned house. The dim light filtering through the cracked windows illuminated dust motes swirling lazily in the air. My heart raced. Every instinct screamed at me to turn back, but the pull of my nightmares was stronger. I needed to understand, to confront the darkness that had plagued my nights. "Are you sure about this?" Jake whispered, his voice barely above a breath. I could see a flicker of fear in his eyes, mirroring my own. "I have to," I replied, taking a tentative step inside. "If I don't, I'll never be free from this." As we moved deeper into the house, remnants of a life once lived surrounded us. Old toys scattered on the floor, faded photographs hanging crookedly on the walls, their subjects long forgotten. Each step echoed in the stillness, amplifying the sense that we were intruding on something sacred. A chill ran down my spine when I heard it, a faint whisper, like a child's giggle, drifting through the air. "Did you hear that?" Jake asked, his eyes wide. "Yes," it sounded like. Before I could finish my thought, a shadow flickered at the edge of my vision. I turned sharply, but it vanished, leaving only my racing heartbeat echoing in my ears. We pressed on, my resolve steadily crumbling under the weight of the house's oppressive atmosphere. Suddenly, I spotted it, the shadowy figure from my nightmares. It was more defined now, its features obscured yet somehow familiar. It loomed in the corner of the room, watching us with a gaze that sent icy tendrils of fear curling around my heart. "Stay close," Jake urged, stepping closer to me. "We need to stick together." I nodded, though my legs felt like lead. "I can't let it intimidate me. I need to find out what it wants." Just as I steeled myself to approach the figure, a wave of dizziness washed over me, and my vision blurred. The world twisted, and I collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath. Suddenly, I found myself in a vision. Children playing in the very room where I lay. Their laughter rang out, innocent and carefree, but their faces were etched with a deep sadness. One child, a girl with bright eyes and tangled hair, reached out towards me. "Mia, help us," she cried, her voice a haunting echo. I felt Jake's hand on my shoulder, pulling me back to reality, but the image of the girl stayed imprinted in my mind. "Mia, are you okay?" Jake's voice broke through the fog of my vision. I stammered, shaken to my core. "I saw them, Jake. The missing children. They were asking for help." His expression shifted from concern to determination. "We need to figure this out. Whatever is happening here, it's connected to you and your family." As we steadied ourselves, I couldn't shake the feeling that the answers we sought were just beyond our reach, lurking in the shadows of the past. The house seemed to sigh around us, as if it knew the secrets we were desperate to uncover. And deep down, I feared what we might find. As the remnants of the past clung to my mind like shadows, I felt an inexplicable connection grow stronger within me. Each night, my dreams shifted, becoming lucid, allowing me to converse with the lost children. I could hear their whispers like leaves rustling in the wind, each voice tinged with sorrow. "Mia," one child called, their tone a mix of hope and despair. "Help us." "Help you with what?" I whispered back, my heart racing in the dark. "Find us," came the reply, echoing through the haze of my sleep. I could see their faces, pale and fragile, trapped within the confines of my nightmares. They revealed to me fragments of their tragic fate, how they had played innocently in the woods, unaware of the darkness that lurked nearby, and how they had vanished, swallowed by an unseen force. "Who did this to you?" I asked, desperate for answers. "Your family," one of the children replied, their eyes wide with fear. "You must break the cycle." The next day, Jake and I returned to the abandoned house, our hearts pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. We searched the dusty corners until we stumbled upon a hidden door, half covered by debris. "What do you think is down there?" Jake asked, peering into the darkness. "I don't know, but we have to find out," I replied, steeling myself as I pushed the door open. The air was thick with the scent of decay, and as we descended into the cellar, I felt a chill crawl down my spine. Inside, we found a small, worn diary. The cover was faded, but the child's name, Emily, was still legible. As I flipped through the pages, the words spilled out like secrets begging to be uncovered. My breath caught as I read about a curse that intertwined my family with the children's fate, binding their souls to the town's dark history. "Do you see this?" I said, my voice trembling. "We're connected, Jake. I'm part of this nightmare." Before Jake could respond, the temperature dropped suddenly, and a shadow coalesced in the corner of the cellar. Its form twisted and writhed, feeding off the fear radiating from me. "Mia!" it hissed, a voice laced with malice. "You cannot escape. Run!" I screamed, grabbing Jake's hand as we turned to flee. Our hearts raced in unison, the darkness chasing us up the stairs and into the light of the outside world. But deep down, I knew we couldn't run forever. We had to confront the entity that haunted me, the very essence of my family's sorrow that clung to the town like a shroud. "We have to go back," I said, breathless, the weight of the truth pressing down on me. "We can't let it win." Back at my house, Jake and I sat cross-legged on my bedroom floor, surrounded by candles flickering softly in the dim light. I could feel the tension in the air as we laid out our plan to confront the shadowy figure that haunted my dreams. It was a strange comfort having him there, even as fear churned in my stomach. "Okay, so we need to find a way to break the cycle," Jake said, his brow furrowed in concentration. "I read about some rituals that might help us connect with the spirits. What do you think?" I nodded, trying to ignore the chill creeping up my spine. "I just want to understand what's happening. Why is this happening to me? To us?" Jake looked at me, his blue eyes serious. "It's about your family, Mia. The grief and guilt, they're feeding this thing. We need to confront it head on." As night fell and my eyelids grew heavy, I felt a mix of anticipation and dread. This was it. I lay down, closing my eyes, and let sleep wash over me, surrendering to the darkness. When I opened my eyes, I was back in the abandoned house, the air thick with sorrow. The walls seemed to pulse with energy, and I could hear whispers, children's voices calling to me. "Mia, help us!" As I walked through the dimly lit rooms, I felt a pull toward the attic. Climbing the creaky stairs, I found the children gathered in a circle, their faces etched with fear. "You have to understand, Mia," one of them cried, pointing to the shadow lurking in the corner. "It's not just a monster," another child added. "It's your mother. She is trapped, just like us." My heart raced as the figure stepped into the light. It was her, my mother, her face twisted in anguish. "Mia, you must let go of the past. The grief holds me here." But just as I reached out for her, realization hit me like a cold wave. Jake wasn't really there. He was a part of my mind, a construct created to help me face my fears. "No," I screamed, my voice echoing in the hollow space. "You're not real." The shadow loomed closer, merging with my mother's form, and I felt the weight of my family's secret press down on me. "You have to free me," her voice echoed, intertwining with the whispers of the children. I felt the energy surge as I fought to break the chains binding her. but the shadows grew stronger. I couldn't escape. I jolted awake, gasping for breath, the remnants of the dream still clinging to me. As I stared at my ceiling, the weight of the past hung heavily in the air. The shadows still lurked in the corners of my mind, a reminder that the nightmares were far from over. Would I ever escape the legacy of grief and guilt, or was I destined to be haunted by my family's dark history forever?